Hello everyone, welcome back to Boss Yourself. Today I wanted to talk about the difference between a boss and a leader. And ultimately, what defines, for me at least, as a boss is usually somebody that's been put into place either from their experience or their knowledge. And for a leader is usually someone that's able to lead by example and be able to motivate the people underneath them. And so I feel like there's a lot of people out there, managers in a managerial position or in a boss position, but they aren't very good leaders. And once again, I'm a 26-year-old who just decided to start uploading videos at night on YouTube. So I can only speak from my perspective. But I have been in both as an employee and as kind of a person who has been quote unquote an employer, even though I wasn't necessarily the owner of the business. Um, and so, one thing that I've learned just from my own experience, I believe that to get somebody to really follow you and to be able to influence somebody, you're going to go a lot further with respect and care for that person rather than demanding or forcing somebody to do something. And I believe that by kindness and care, you're going to go a lot further. And so ultimately, as an employee, I think most people can vouch that for me, for somebody who I didn't necessarily care for, I didn't like, if I wasn't assigned a task to do and I didn't get it done, I really didn't have much motivation because I didn't like the guy. I mean, if he came and told me so, I said, hey, screw off. That was basically my mentality at the time. And so I've kind of shifted that a little bit more just as I've started to grow. But I've also realized that for me, myself, if I've had friends as employers too. And so I feel a lot more need to get that done more out of respect for them and not letting them down more than a guy who's just forcing me or telling me to get something done. Um, I usually tended to repel from that. And so I think anybody can be a boss, but I don't think everybody could be a leader. And by that, I mean, there are people out there, like I said, who are in boss positions but aren't very good leaders and aren't getting the type of results they want from their team or whoever it may be. And so I feel like a lot of that is due to the way they maybe approach their employees. I think a lot of it is not understanding necessarily how some of their employees are motivated. And I think when you really learn how to find out what motivates somebody and really take the time to basically use that, take the time to put yourself in their shoes and take the time to get better with them so that I don't feel like the people out there in those manager positions or high level positions where you're trying to produce results and you're not quite getting that from your team. And I feel like if you really took the time to learn how people were motivated, which is really simple, basically people are motivated by one of two things, and that's either out of joy or fear. And so if you can learn how each person is motivated, you're going to be able to get the best out of that person by motivating them in a way that is going to be beneficial to them. For example, just for myself, I go either way. I've learned, I've kind of had the mentality of, hey, you tell me I can't do anything, I will get it done, type deal, or also the mentality of, hey, great job. So both of those really motivate me, and I think a lot of that has to do with self motivation, creating that motivation up inside myself. So when you take the time to learn how other people are motivated, I think you can then strive or do things to ultimately put them in a better position. And so I want to talk about what makes a leader. And to me, I believe basically a leader is someone who leads by example. Not only leads by example, but also walks the walk. Is not out there just saying that they're going to do something and then doesn't follow through. I believe as a leader, one of your biggest character traits is your word, and I believe that people following you got to be able to back your word in order for anybody to get anybody to believe you or to want to follow you or anything of that sort. I know for me, when I was in a leadership position, which I have been for quite some time now, I found out that I've garnished more respect from taking the time to understand how people are going to be motivated, learning, really knowing the fine things, because everybody's motivated by different things. And so I think when you take the time to, and now this can be a little bit harder with a bigger team, but I think if you're starting off with a small team and you can figure out what motivates that individual, and you can construct something of sort that revolves around that individual, so that way they can hit their goals, because I believe if you can make it to where they can hit their goals, you're going to hit your goals that you have set for yourself as well. And so I believe that you should just take the time, really understand how that person should be motivated. Then you can start to set goals that's really going to motivate that person, bring out the best of that person, and ultimately bring you results in the end. And so one of the hardest things I've found being in a boss leadership position is I do make a lot of friends in the workplace. And so there's a kind of a fine line of a friend and an employee. And so one of the struggles I've had was discipline, or trying to tell somebody that I considered a friend what to do. And I've come to the conclusion that ultimately, like I mentioned beforehand, that if somebody's your friend, you would want to do that out of respect for the friendship there. And I also know now that when you do have to approach somebody in order for those disciplinary actions, or whatever it may be, when that hard conversation comes, I believe that if they are a true friend, then they will simply know that all you're doing is your job. And so at the end of the day, I just believe, we got a lot of bosses out there, and there's not enough leaders. And once again, you don't have to be in a boss position to be a leader. You can start tomorrow. Just take somebody and help them reach a goal that they want for themselves. And that's what leadership is.